Hello everyone, I'm Yvonne, a children's librarian here at the Manchester City Library, and I would like to welcome you to Elementary Experiments. Here we're going to do experiments and activities aimed at elementary grades 1 through 6, with a focus on STEAM, our science, engineering, technology, arts, and math. This spring, we're going to continue to have our in-person events at 3:30 p.m. on the second Wednesday and the fourth Tuesday of the month. We will also be putting up our videos at the same time as our in-person elementary experiments. If you would like to join our in-person activities next time, please visit our website and register. Registering for the event ensures that we have enough supplies for the activities and kits for everyone who attends to take home. Any extra craft kits we are going to put at the children's reference desk, and they will be available for anyone who wants to do the craft at home and is in the correct age range. Now that we have covered all that, let's get into this week's elementary experiments. Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's elementary experiments, where we are going to be talking about caves. So there are a lot of different kinds of caves, and I know when I was younger, anything that was even a little bit carved out and had a bit of an overhang counted as a cave to me. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary does give us a definition of a cave, though, and they say a natural chamber or series of chambers in the earth or in the side of a hill or a cliff. That is their first definition, and that is the one that we are kind of talking about today, as we are talking about naturally occurring caves. In the instance of our very first activity, we are actually talking about caves that formed through erosion. This is probably very typical if you're thinking of a cave that might have stalactites or stalagmites inside of it. A lot of those were formed through erosion. So what often happens is the ground is made up of a ton of different types of stones and minerals and layers of ground. And some of these minerals or layers are stronger than others. So when you have water seepage, either like just a rain from the sky, or if there is some type of underground river, or anything like that that can penetrate into the ground, the water is going to try and find the path of least resistance. And that means that it is going to wear away the less strong or the more loosely packed areas of the ground. And then all of the water that comes after that first little bit gets through is going to follow that same route or as close as it can, and kind of gradually widen that space. We have a lot of stone that is easily worn away, something like limestone, for instance, or possibly even sandstone, both of which are very easy to chip off and or can dissolve easily in the presence of water. So these types of stone can be worn away by water, either forming cavities inside of them, or if they are encased in a harder stone surrounding them, then possibly have that limestone worn out entirely, leaving the shell of the harder stone around it. So this is what we're going to try and model in our activity. So if you would gather your supplies, we can meet back here and see if we can make a mini version of this dissolving cave formation. All right, so here I have gathered my clear bowl in which I am going to build my cave. I also have a surface that will be okay if it gets wet, because even though I am going to be spraying into my bowl, I don't know if my spray bottle full of warm water is going to be very precise. So you want to make sure that your area is covered. So here we have a more unusual item, are sugar cubes. At least they are unusual for me. I have read a lot about them, but I never had a reason to get any before. And now we're going to experiment with building caves with them. Let's see. We also have, I have here some Play-Doh. The original suggestion was for clay, a polymer clay, but I have Play-Doh, and even though Play-Doh will not hold up as well under warm water, I still think that it will outlast our sugar. So one of these tiny containers is 3 ounces, and the suggestion is to have at least 4 ounces on hand. So I have a couple of these. I'll see if I need more than one, but I have the backup just in case. And finally, I have my little skewer. You can also use a toothpick. Basically, we just need something to make some small holes through the surface level of our cave to sort of start the erosion process, because we don't want to actually sit here for several hundred years, or in this case probably only take a few days, but a few days is still a long time, so we want to kickstart this. All right, so what we're going to do is pretty simple. We are going to sort of build our world. We have our bowl, and we're going to take some of our sugar cubes, and we are going to build them up against the side of our bowl, because we want to be able to observe what is happening inside of the cave. So we're basically making our own cutaway view. If you've ever looked at any of the really cool books, we have some at the Manchester City Library where you have drawings or pictures of objects, and then they are just like sliced in half in the drawing, and everything is still going on as normal. We are kind of making a real life version of that. So I'm going to stack up my cubes so that they are kind of in a pile against the side wall. And then I am going to take my Play-Doh, and because we are using sugar, any Play-Doh or clay that you are using in this activity, you are going to need to throw out afterwards, or at least I would strongly advise that you throw it afterwards, because sugar can attract bugs, and it may also cause like mold and stuff to grow. So I'm going to take my Play-Doh, gonna make it a little bit easier to work with, and then I'm going to start putting my Play-Doh around my sugar cubes to sort of form the earth and the stone that might have like flowed over this formation. Okay, so here we have my hillside that is made of stone, and then I have my sugar cubes under here, which is possibly the limestone that is underneath the earth. And I did have actually a little bit of Play-Doh left over, and I used the maximum amount of cubes that was suggested, which was 6, and I used a little bit less than 3 ounces of Play-Doh, so not bad. This is where we are going to take our wooden skewer or toothpick, or way to make tiny holes, and we're going to go ahead and poke in some entryways into our hillside. And who knows what these are? It's possible that these are either burrowing animals, or maybe probably more likely that they're like tree roots. Tree roots are actually very strong and can be very stubborn over time. That's why you have to be careful about trees being planted too close to your house, because they can actually go in and disrupt the foundations of your house, so they can eat into or crack into cement. They can do the same thing to stone. So here we had some tree roots grow into our stone. I actually don't know how many holes we need, so I'm going to try those. And then we have our warm water here. This is going to be a nice spring rain or perhaps a torrential downpour, not sure yet. What we're going to do is we are just going to spray our hillside, and then we are going to try and view in here the back to see how the addition of water will affect our rocks. Actually, both the outside and the inside. Because as I mentioned, Play-Doh will dissolve a little bit with water. So I'm curious to see how our erosion affects both layers of rock. Okay, well I don't want to spray the camera, so we'll see how this goes. Alright, so I've been doing a bit of spraying, and if you guys can see, there's definitely some color change here. We've got some wet and I think a little bit of destabilization in these cubes. We've also got some water collecting, so I'm going to continue our erosion time. Oh, this is cool. Again, I'm not 100% sure if you guys can see, but here we've got an erosion through our first layer of stone. And I didn't put that in all by itself, like I might have helped, but we definitely got a crack going through that is depositing water into our cave. Alright, definitely coming. If you can see, actually part of the cave is underwater, which is something that happens to a lot of caves. A lot of cave systems are at least partially underwater, which is part of the reason why you should never go into a cave unless you are a professionally trained caving expert. And even then you have to be careful because it is very dangerous. So here is my cave. I actually really like how the outside of my sort of hillside or cliff face ended up, because there did end up being revealed a couple of spots that do open into the large cavern that was created by all of this sugar being dissolved and sort of melting into this kind of pool at the bottom of the cave. There's still some definite sugar down there, but it's no longer in those blocks. If you guys can see it, I've got so much glare going on. But I do really like how the Play-Doh, because Play-Doh is still susceptible to water and especially warm water, we had this exterior erosion as well. And I love that because that is how people find these huge, massive caves, right? They're like, oh, look at this like smaller opening on this side or this larger one here. What happens if we go in that? Again, hopefully the person is trained and has the right equipment to do so. And then when they walk in to these small holes, they see all of this really awesome space that has been created with all of these really cool shapes. Like if you look up into where the sugar cubes were kind of like stuck up into the Play-Doh, you can see the cool formations that were left behind. As you may have noticed, I did pour out some of my water as I went so that it wouldn't be like flooded by the time I got to a cool point with the dissolved sugar. So that's something that I hadn't thought 100% about. So I was lucky I had a little bowl. And I hope that helps you guys if you decide to do this at home. So this was a really fun experiment. The only way I think it could be better is if we could also show the creation of like stalactites and stalagmites. But I'm not sure how you would do that. I think you might have to do like a super saturated solution of sugar and then maybe like drip it down from the top, because stalagmites and stalactites are made when water is seeping down from the roof of a cave, and that water is very, very full of minerals. and it's seeping through very slowly. So as each drop like gets to a little dip in the roof, it actually kind of dries out and leaves all of its minerals like at that point of that dip. And then that happens over and over again because if you remember, water tends to take the same path through stone. And so over time, that little dip gets that buildup of layers and layers and the layers of dried minerals until they form their own rock, which is that sort of pillar formation that goes down and is our stalactite. I remember it because it's holding tight to the ceiling. And then that's also often how stalagmites are formed as well, because water will drip down from above and then land on the ground, and then over time, that is built up through layers and layers of like evaporated water and leaving their minerals behind until you get a cone extending from the floor as well. This is only just a very little bit about caves. I am myself am not a geologist. I just think that they're very cool. So there's a bunch more to learn, not just through books, although we do have them at the Manchester City Library, but we have our craft as well. So this craft is kind of unusual, but I am here to walk you through it, and I hope you'll be able to get a craft kit for this one, or at the very least be able to source your own. So meet me back here after I do a little bit of cleanup and we will go over that. All right, everyone, welcome to this week's craft. As you saw, our craft today is actually a geode smash. So instead of building something, we're actually going to be cracking something apart. Now, this is one of those things where obviously you're going to need to do a little bit of ordering, shopping around, or some very lucky finding if you are unable to pick up our craft kit from the Manchester City Library. We do have our craft kits available while supplies last at the Manchester City Library for anyone in grades 1 through 6. All that's in here today is going to be our instructions here and one geode. All right, so obviously this is an unbroken geode. So a very cool thing about geodes is they are round. In fact, geode comes from the Greek word meaning shape of the earth because the rocks are round, which is somewhat unusual. And so almost all geodes will be kind of a round shape, and that is a way that they are kind of easier to find. So the ones that we have that we got at the library actually come from Morocco. So they are not local geodes, but you can find geodes. I'm not sure about in New Hampshire. That would definitely be something to look up. But there are definitely a ton of geodes that you can find in the United States, and some places do have sort of like rock hunting as an activity that you can do. It's also something to keep an eye out if you are ever going hiking in any of these cool spots in an area that you are allowed to take rocks from. So not like national parks or anything like that. So geodes are in large part kind of tiny caves all on their own. So they are formed in hollow spaces, either because they're just a bubble of air, or there's something that has either been washed away or rotted away and left that space. Then slowly over time, water comes into this space and brings with it different types of minerals, and will deposit them into that area. And then those minerals harden into our outer shell and then slowly form the crystals inside. So they move from the walls in towards the center. That's why sometimes a geode will have a hollow space, and sometimes they'll be completely full of a crystal. And apparently, a geode that is completely full is called a node. So I have no idea what kind of geode I have. Hopefully there are some cool crystals. It is possible that you get something like this that you're like, oh, that's a geode, and you crack it open and there isn't any crystals. But hopefully all the ones that we got will have at least something. So we are going to smash these geodes. However, we do want to do it safely. So what we're going to do first is we're going to make sure that we have an adult with us to be safe and be sure that we are not going to get into any trouble by smashing our geodes anywhere that could be dangerous. I am my own adult, so I have that part checked off. The next thing we want to do is we want to get either an old sock, like this one here, full of holes, and we want to put that geode inside. And you want to make sure that it is a sock that you don't want to use anymore, because when we smash our geode, it is going to come apart in pieces. It's not going to be like one clean cut through it, and it will have pieces that come off. It's going to be a little bit like when you drop a glass. You might have small pieces that try and fly away from the geode, and we are going to stop those small pieces by putting it inside of our sock, and or taking an old towel, or a towel that we don't want to use for, like, food purposes probably, and folding it over. This means that the towel and or sock, the fabrics, will stop most, if not all, of the pieces of rock from flying out and hitting us. It's also going to help protect both the head of our hammer, the geode itself, and the concrete that we're going to have underneath us. Because when you have two things that are very hard and they hit each other, it can dent multiple things, right? So we don't want to dent up our hammer, we don't want to dent up our floor, and we do not want to hurt our geode more than is possible, right? We want larger pieces if possible. So that is why we have our geode inside of our fabrics. Also have eye protection, because even though we have put our fabrics over our geode, if you can get yourself some eye protection, you should definitely have some. Even if it is not 100% our cool lab equipment, even if you have a pair of like swim goggles, I would definitely suggest putting those on if you are going to be close to the hammer when it falls. So we get our goggles on, and then we are ready to do our smashing. So obviously this is not concrete, so I'm not going to actually smash my geode here. I'm going to have to go outside where there is concrete to do this. But basically what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to find our geode right here. And then we are going to tap it just a bit, because again, we want our geode to crack into large pieces if possible. It's not going to be perfect, but if we just go on and smash it, first of all, we might miss our geode and actually hit the concrete and damage it, which someone is going to be mad at us about. So let's not do that. But also, if we smash it too hard, it might break into tiny, tiny pieces. So we're going to hit the geode, and then we are going to keep hitting it until it breaks. Over time, you can start hitting it a little bit harder, but remember to work slowly, because we are looking for the best result that we can get. Okay, so I'm going to go outside and find my concrete and try and break open this geode. I will meet you back here with my results. So I have come back from my smashing expedition. I have to admit, I think I was a little bit too impatient. I think that if I was a little bit slower in my increase of power, I could have gotten like a few bigger pieces, but I am pretty happy with what happened. So here, my geode has smashed open. I'm not sure if you guys can see how like really quite glittery these are. Here is definitely my biggest piece. Here you can see that there was an empty interior in my large piece. And you can see how there was this edge here, and then all the crystals grew inward in our tiny mini cave. But even just the other pieces are still really cool. Yeah, and I definitely want to figure out something to do with these. So overall, I think that I am very pleased with my geode and the smashing. Definitely didn't have that much trouble. So if you were able to pick up or find a geode, I hope that your smashing went as well as mine. I definitely have to think of something to do with these pieces because they are really cool. Like some of them I might just, like maybe the biggest piece, I might just find a cool spot to display it. But the other pieces would be really cool to add to something. So I don't know, have to brainstorm that. And I hope you find something cool to do with them as well. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this Caves Elementary experiment. We did literally just barely scratch the surface of all the cool things that you can learn about caves and erosion and other kinds of rocks. So I hope that you take this as inspiration to go and learn some more cool stuff. As usual, I will have put some book suggestions into this presentation towards the end. Also, a reminder for our next elementary experiments, which is going to be the last elementary experiments of May, and our last elementary experiments until the summer reading program starts up. That next elementary experiments is going to be May 28th, mini crafters. And then again, no elementary experiments until mid-June. And our schedule is going to change for the summer. Instead of doing the second Wednesday and the fourth Tuesday of the month, during summer reading, we are going to be doing every other Tuesday during summer reading, just because we have so much going on with summer reading that we needed the other Wednesday spots for other programming. So definitely look out for the summer schedule. I know it's already out there, or you can always come into the library and pick one up yourself. For this age group, we definitely have some other cool stuff. Obviously, we are going to be having those elementary experiments on Tuesday. We are going to be having some escape rooms for the older kids. It's going to start on kids going into grade 3. We're going to be having tabletop capers, which is board games, and we are going to be having our adventure camp, which is going to be on Wednesdays. So if you can only come on Wednesdays, even though we won't be having elementary experiments, definitely look into what we will be having then. And I hope to see you there. So again, one more elementary experiments in spring. That's going to be on May 28th, and then we're going to switch over to our summer schedule. All right, I think that's everything. So I will say goodbye.